Whenever looking for the domain and range of a function, whether it's a list of ordered pairs or a table of values or a graph, I kind of teach my students to always think dx ry, because sometimes the hardest part is remembering, well, which variable is domain and which variable is range. So dx ry means domain is x, range is y. So I'm going to look at the x's that are used and I'm going to list them. So -3, -1, 1, 3. These are already in order from smallest to biggest, and that's usual. And then domain is a set, so these curvy parentheses are a set notation. It means the set of all numbers that are listed within. And I like to throw a domain or a D in front of it. So domain is -3, -1, 1, 3, because those are our x's. For the range, I'm going to look at the y's. Actually going to list them off to the side for a couple of reasons. Number one is they're not in order, so when I order them, so 4 comes first because it's the smallest, followed by 5, then 6. Even though the 5 is used twice, the range is just a list of all the numbers that are used. Doesn't matter how many times they are used. So the range becomes 4, 5, 6. For this next one, we're going to start now with an equation. So f at x is 3 over x. Another way that means is y is 3 divided by x. This is just math language for this sentence. So I'm going to create a table of values. When you create a table of values, you get to pick the x's. I don't want to pick too few because I want to get a good picture of what's going. So I'm actually going to go from -3 to +3. So hopefully that gives me a good picture, and we'll know when we go to the graph if we can pick out what's happening. So now I'm literally just going to do 3 divided by each of the x's, because that's what my equation is, to fill in the table. So 3 divided by -3 is -1. 3 divided by -2 is -1.5. 3 divided by -1 is -3. 3 divided by 0 is undefined. It doesn't work. Division means how many groups. So 3 divided by 0 would mean how many zeros to get 3, which is an impossible situation because I can have 3 zeros, I can have a million zeros, I can have 0 zeros. Doesn't matter, I always have 0. I'll move on from there. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. So table of values is done. Now we're going to draw the graph. I'm lucky because I actually have a graph here. You would set up your y-axes, set up your x-axes, label your scales. Now everything is kind of small here, so I am going to count by ones. Remember, the x and the y line do not have to have the same scale. If I was graphing really, really high or really low numbers, I could count by tens here. As long as the y has all the same scale and the x does, it's all good. So now I'm going to put in our points. So -3 went with -1. -2 went with -1.5, and -1 went with -3. I'm going to skip over 0 because we kind of talked about that. It's undefined. And when x equals 1, y was 3. When x equals 2, y was 1.5. And when x equals 3, our y was 1. So to get those points, I just graphed all of these ordered pairs, x with the y's. Now I can kind of start to see a curve happening here. I can join these up like this. And now if I were to keep filling in, I'm going to get smaller and smaller. 3 divided by 10 is 0.3. 3 divided by 20 is even smaller. Here I'm going to curve up that way. Same thing is going to happen down here. And if you're ever unsure about what's going to happen, there are plenty of free graphing softwares There's plenty of free graphing applications on the internet. If you just search it and type in 3 over x or 3 divided by x, it'll give you a picture. Because now I want to do my domain and I want to do my range. For the domain talks about x. If I kind of not going to worry too much about 0 right now, but if I look at the graph, it'll fill itself in all the way up to positive infinity. And similarly here, all the way back to negative infinity, I'll have points on the graph. So it looks like the domain might be all real numbers. That's how we say everything. But then I have this hole in the middle. There's no point over x equals 0. So how I say x can't be 0 is I literally do not equal to. So the domain is everything except 0. Similarly for the range, if I look at the height of the graph goes all the way up because this line will keep getting higher and higher and higher. Similarly, the graph goes all the way down because this will keep going down, 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 down. It'll never hit this middle line though, because 3 divided by 0, which is my y, can never equal 0. There's no number I can put in there to get 0. So similarly, my range is anything but 0. Because range goes with y, I say y not 0.